Hi everybody, it's Joel again from InGenius Prep. Today's part 2 on our series about how you can make your college applications stand out. This video is going to cover a very important topic, which is how applications are reviewed, how they're debated, and how decisions are made to reject, admit, waitlist students at various colleges. I'd like to emphasize that this is really a broad overview. Each individual school has its own admissions process that might differ slightly or even significantly from the process that we present here. The reason that we're presenting it is really more to give you a broad overview of what happens at most schools. So if you're curious about how the admissions process works at an individual school, your best bet is to check the school's website and particularly under the tab Admissions. So most people, when I tell them about how applications are reviewed, are pretty surprised. Students tend to think that you fill out the Common App and then you submit it into kind of a void, into a black hole where these mysterious people called admissions officers review it and then ultimately come back with your decision. That's not how it works. There's a very concrete process, and it's important that you understand what that process is. So generally what happens is you submit your application, and that application is put on top of a pile. Now, since everything is virtual, it's not a real pile, but let's just call it a virtual pile of all of the applications submitted during either the regular decision or the early decision time frame. In some cases, this might be as many as 40,000 applications, all of which are many pages long. The Common Application itself, without any essay or letters of recommendation, will usually run 6 pages. So with the essay plus the letters of recommendation and a resume, you're talking about 10 to 12 pages per application. So in total, you're talking about almost 400,000, if not more, pages of applications that are going to be stacked up in the admissions office for review. What then happens is that these applications are split up into individual piles. They're given to what's called admissions readers. On the website, the person might be designated as the associate or assistant director of admissions or as an admissions reader. This person is sort of the first line of defense in the admissions office. They're there to look through applications, to weed out the ones that they believe are totally unqualified, and to find the ones that they'll ultimately advocate for at the next step, which is the admissions committee. That's normally when a number of admissions officers or the entire admissions office gets together. Usually the director of admissions is present, and they make final decisions on applications. Normally what will happen is an admissions officer will bring up individual files that they're particularly interested in, and they'll advocate for that student based on what they've read. Other admissions officers weigh in on the process, and it's a pretty democratic voting process that results. Again, this is not always the case with the various universities and colleges, but tends to be pretty similar for most schools. So why is that important? It's important because your admissions officer might have as many as 100,000 pages of applications to read over the course of just a couple of months. In order for them to advocate for you, they need to remember you. Right? You need to be somebody that stands out to them. You can't just be somebody who's sort of lost in the fray of the other 10,000 applications that they need to read. It is extremely important that not only that you impress the admissions officer and demonstrate that you are in fact qualified for admission, but also that you stand out, that you be remembered, so that when they hit the committee part of the admissions process, they think to themselves, oh, there's that student who really stood out, who I want to mention. If your application looks exactly the same as another applicant's, you're not going to get in. There are so many students every year with perfect test scores and perfect GPAs that get rejected from a lot of the top schools, and they don't understand why. And oftentimes the reason is that their application just looked the same as everyone else's. There was no single central thrust that they were highlighting, and so they just weren't memorable. And when you're talking about that many applications, being memorable is extremely important. So bottom line, if you don't make an impression on the admissions officer that's assigned to your file, he or she was not going to advocate for you, and you will not be admitted. At InGenius Prep, we employ over 60 former admissions officers from top-ranking universities and colleges. Every single one of them, when they go through the hiring process, is asked, are there any students or applications that you particularly remember? And there are really two kinds of applications they remember. One is students who screwed up really badly. But the other, and more important for the purposes of this video series, are the students who were just fantastic, who highlighted one very compelling aspect of themselves. And it's not the students who had the perfect GPA and the perfect test scores or went to the most prestigious or elite boarding schools. More often than not, it's the student who's from the middle of nowhere and just did something very interesting. And the whole application highlighted what made that applicant unique, what made that applicant stand out. You should understand that standing out is a huge part of getting into these schools, perhaps just as important as being qualified in the first place. So that's all for this time. I hope this was helpful. Don't forget to click subscribe for lots more admissions and college application tips from InGenius Prep, to like this video if you found it helpful, or to follow us on Facebook or Twitter, links below. If you'd like to talk with an admissions expert today, just follow the link to our website in the description and you can sign up for a free consultation right now. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in part 3.